Until now, the 2023 Motul FIM Superbike World Championship has been a monthly affair. This afternoon, though, we head into the busiest spell this season thus far. Prosecco DOC UK round, providing the first of 9 races this month. You join us from the rural outskirts of Derby for World SBK's 30th visit to its birthplace, historic Donington Park. The venue dates back to May of 1931 and it retains a traditional layout, a real park circuit, particularly in the first half of the lap, where riders sweep between grass viewing areas with a narrow line and little room for error. No particularly long straights to make up positions here. The start-finish straight just 550 metres, but pretty much all of the 12 turns present overtaking opportunities. Right from the first corner, it's hard braking and side-by-side into Redgate. The second half of the lap is more stop and go. The final 4 turns play heavily in favour of Toprak Razgatlioglu. He made exemplary moves on Jonathan Rea in race 2 last season to show how it's done. From the circuit's top speed of over 270 kilometres per hour to just over 100 for the Fogarty S's. And then at the Melbourne Loop, the slowest corner on the circuit, but again approached at speed. At just 4 kilometres, this is the shortest circuit on the calendar, but also among the fastest. And with the first full resurfacing in 2 decades having been carried out this winter, the race lap record should fall over the course of this weekend. "15 races down, Alvaro Bautista has taken victory in all but one, amassing an 86-point championship lead. The best ever start to a World SBK season, with 10 consecutive victories to his name. This weekend, he could beat his own record-winning streak from 4 years ago. But this is not just any venue. It's Donington Park, where Bautista dropped out of the series lead in that famous 2019 campaign, where he suffered his first race crash last season, and where he's recorded just 2 podiums in 9 starts, his worst record at any venue. First of 3 point-scoring opportunities at the Prosecco DOC UK round. Alex Raby and Steve English to talk you through the action. Steve, this really is the best opportunity Bautista's rivals have had so far to take something back from him in 2023.
Definitely the best opportunity for Jonathan Rea and for Kawasaki to spring a surprise. They've got the pole position, but pole position is one thing. Now you need 23 laps of performance to be able to keep yourself at the front of the field. It's cool temperatures here, 20 degrees air temperature, but look at the wind in the background. That's going to cool everything down all the way through this race. It's also going to make it very difficult for the Pirelli tyres. Track temperature's low, the wind's going to cool the tyres even further. This is going to be really interesting to see who's able to make their tyres last for the full race distance. Toprak
Razgatlioglu restricted to the second row of the grid. Only once has he been on the front row here at Donington Park, but it hasn't mattered historically, has it? He managed a hat-trick here in 2022, and he famously came through from the 5th row of the grid in 2021. So row number 2, by comparison, he's right at the front.
It should be very easy for him, really, but this is a track that he loves. He's had a lot of success here. Yamaha's had a lot of success here as well. I think back to 5 years ago, Michael van der Mark claimed his first World Superbike race victories on the Yamaha R1 here. He did the double, and certainly he's someone that has shown the strength of the Yamaha for so many years at this track. But Toprak, he's the man to beat around this track. Did the hat-trick last year. He's been successful here in the Kawasaki and the Yamaha as well, so certainly I'll be keeping an eye on the 54 from the second row of the grid.
And a slightly mixed up Superpole in the sense that yellow flags ended up being a protagonist.
Yeah, the yellow flags were a big factor. We saw Rinaldi crash, we saw Bassani crash. Tom Sykes qualified on the middle of the 3rd row of the grid. He probably should have been much closer to the front. He actually had the chance, maybe even of that pole position, but just didn't quite work out because of those yellow flags.
So it's Jonathan Rea then who starts from your pole position. Well, the Emilia-Romagna round, the second round this season that didn't yield even 1 podium to Jonathan Rea. The first time he hasn't taken at least some silverware from Misano with Kawasaki. 5 races now without a trip to the rostrum for Jonathan Rea, matching his longest run since 2014. Tough 2023 for both rider and manufacturer.
Yeah, it's been very tough for them. They're used to sustained success. If you think back from 2011 onwards, really, with Tom Sykes on the bike and then Jonathan Rea's run of 6 World Championships. The Kawasaki was the bike to beat, but that feels like a lot longer ago every race we go through. Today was the first pole position in 9 months for Jonathan Rea, and considering how much success he's had over a single lap in recent years, it really is telling of just how difficult a task it is for Kawasaki.
Recent test in Aragon helping Kawasaki and KRT.
Yeah, it helped them for warm track temperatures in particular. It was over 50 degrees and the bike was working well. Obviously here now at Donington Park it's very different conditions, but these are the conditions the Kawasaki has traditionally worked better in as well, so that could be a factor for Jonathan Rea.
Jonathan Rea then hoping to capitalise on that pole position, but he's got a tiger on his tail in the shape of Alvaro Bautista. And Bautista, fresh back from his recent MotoGP test, a first appearance on prototype machinery since 2018, a reward for his 2022 world title. By all accounts, Ducati making positive noises about his speed there, even if outright lap time wasn't necessarily the priority. So it wouldn't be a surprise if he appeared back in the GP paddock after he wraps up business here. New livery last time out in Misano to celebrate Ducati's home round. Riding in yellow didn't change the results though, did it? Bautista didn't put a foot wrong at the Emilia-Romagna round. His 3rd consecutive hat-trick, 7th of his Superbike career, dominant in the 221 lap races in particular.
Yeah, strong all the way through the season so far. This weekend, it's been earmarked as the real test for Ducati. They got 2 bikes in the front row of the grid. The bike's not too bad around this track either. Bautista, though, had a small crash at the end of the Superpole session, so maybe that's going to be in the back of his mind a little bit during the course of the early laps of this race.
Alex Lowes arrives for his home round with a 2024 contract already in his pocket. Announcement on Thursday confirmed Lowes will continue into a 5th season with KRT. Race winner on his debut with the manufacturer in 2020. He's picked up 14 podiums in total in green.
Yeah, for Lowes, a really important step to have the contract sorted. He's ridden very well through the course of this season. He's been closer to Jonathan Rea than in the past, and we've seen a lot of battles on track with them. So Kawasaki have 2 riders getting the most out of their package. It's not the rider's fault if it's for a little bit further down the order than what we're used to seeing from the green bikes. Yes,
1-2 on the grid last season for KRT. They're 1 and 5 this time around, but we know Lowes has had strong performances here at Donington Park.
Yeah, Lowes felt that maybe there was a chance of a better lap at the end of the session. He came through one of the corners and hit a knee slider from another crash, so cost him a bit of time, but he feels pretty good on that bike around here. He's been able to make a lot of bikes work at Donington Park, whether it's the Suzuki, the Yamaha or the Kawasaki in recent years, so he's going to feel pretty confident from that middle of the 2nd row.
Best Superpole performance yet for Danilo Petrucci, confirming an upsurge in form, and improvements that Barney Ducati have made appear to be working out quite nicely. It wasn't a question of familiar territory in Misano. He's looking good here at Donington Park, where he hasn't been in well over a decade since his stock days.
Yeah, we had over the course this weekend so far was wet weather yesterday, so riders weren't able to get a lot of laps in. What we saw in the Superpole session was that Bautista was able to lead Petrucci around, so Danilo was able to have a good yardstick, and then he was able to make the laps. But now in the race, it's up to him to show that he can make it last for 23 laps. Tyre life is going to be a big concern for everyone, so we'll see how the Barney team deals with that. It's going to be a case of seeing if riders are able to be aggressive through the course of the race, or if they have to conserve the tyre all the way through the race. For our Park Ferme interviews at the end of the Superpole session, Rea, Bautista and Petrucci all talked about tyre consumption and the fact that you had to make the tyre last for 23 laps.
Petrucci, though, showing good pace last time out in Misano. If he can continue that over the course of this weekend, perhaps he'll walk away with more points this time around than he did from the Emilia-Romagna round. Well, still the closest anyone is getting to Alvaro Bautista in 2023 is Toprak Razgatlioglu. He is our only other race winner. Very nearly took another in the Superpole race in Misano before that red flag at the start of lap 8. So 12 consecutive podiums now, the best run of Razgatlioglu's career. He's still averaging over 42 points per round, which was enough for a title, remember, 2 years ago.
Yeah, and for Toprak, that's what we've been able to see through the course this season, is a rider that's doing everything he can. He's just up against a package that's a step above, and Ducati has been that through the course of this season so far. But here at Donington Park, maybe it's going to be a bit different. Toprak did the hat-trick last year, as you can see here, and he's going to aim for something similar this week.
Yes, just 1 win in 2023, but he starts this weekend as the favourite. 5 wins in 6 races here with Yamaha. Won from 13th on the grid in 2021, took his first World SBK hat-trick last season, and scored his first top-flight podium here in 2018. So Toprak Razgatlioglu really is something of a track specialist. We head in to find the number 7 7, Iker Lecuona, who crashed out of the Emilia-Romagna round, a hip injury he sustained in the Superpole race, and he was forced to miss race 2. But after intensive training to strengthen the muscles around the damaged area, he was back on a bike last weekend with a MotoGP appearance at Assen, replacing Joan Mir, his second such substitute outing this season so far.
Yeah, and for Lecuona, he's done a good job whenever he's jumped onto the MotoGP bike. The injuries in the Superbike season have definitely curtailed him a little bit, but he needs momentum now before we go into our summer break. So 3 rounds in July, 3 opportunities for him to make that step forward.
Tom Sykes, BMW's all-time appearance record holder. He's back as a substitute for Michael van der Mark. The Dutchman has been out on a track day in the Netherlands, so he's closing in on a return from his Assen injury. But every race now is an audition for Sykes before his short window of opportunity closes.
Yeah, exactly. I had a chat with van der Mark yesterday, and he's doing everything he can to get himself back to fitness. He's tested a bike in Assen, but said that he wasn't quite comfortable with it yet. Still found it quite physically demanding with his leg injury, but we'll wait and see when van der Mark's back on the bike. For Tom, it's just an opportunity. Go out and show what you can do. He probably could have had pole position if it wasn't for the yellow flags, which would have been a great story here at Donington. Yes,
nonetheless, he is the highest ranked BMW after that Superpole session. He will start from P8 and knows every inch of this Donington Park circuit. This is where he's always been able to make the difference throughout his career, whether that's here in the World Championship or indeed his short foray in the British Championship.
Yeah, for Tom, this is a track where he's had so much success in World Championships. Last year he was able to win races here in BSB as well, so this is the one place where if he was to have a weekend on any bike, it would always be here, and let's see if he can do something in the races. The good thing for Tom is at Misano he was a very close match to the other BMW riders, so we'll see what he can do here.
And as the riders then make their way out onto the track, we have 23 race laps ahead of us, and the balance of power as far as manufacturers are concerned. Kawasaki with 19 wins around this venue, had 10 consecutive wins here from 2013 to 2017. Yamaha, they've managed 15 consecutive podiums this season so far, but they haven't had the best of results aside from Toprak Razgatlioglu, who's made the difference in recent seasons. 5 wins out of 6 at this circuit for Yamaha. BMW managed their first World SBK win here in 2012. I think their expectations will be somewhat more modest this weekend, and Honda haven't had a podium here since 2012. So, those are your manufacturers, but what about Ducati? Looking for their first win at Donington Park since 2011 through Carlos Checa, also the only Spanish winner here, and Ducati have had only 1 podium in the last 2 years. This is going to be a real test for them.
This is the real test for Ducati, but we've been able to see them make big steps forward over the course of the last year. There's a reason Alvaro's won all but 1 race this season. It's up to him to show that the talk of this being the tough circuit for Ducati, that he's able to overcome that. As it is, you're still expecting him to go out there and finish on the podium. So if that's your bad weekend, it's very ominous for everyone else. But given the conditions we've had over the course of this week so far, it'll be interesting to see if everyone's been able to get their bike into the ballpark straight away.
Michael Ruben Rinaldi and now Axel Bassani making their way out onto the circuit. Bassani, who took his first podium of the season last time out in Misano, something of a relief for him really, and he was particularly pleased to have got it at his home round. 2 4th places and that 3rd, his highest scoring round of the season so far, was a perfect way to bounce back after a somewhat underwhelming Barcelona weekend.
Yeah, tough weekend in Barcelona, and that's the thing for a lot of riders. It's about momentum through the course of the season. If you have a tough weekend, so in Catalonia you want to bounce back at Misano. If you have a tough week in Misano, you want to have a good weekend here. It's so difficult to string weeks together. That's where the top championship riders do it all the way through the season. That's where Bautista's so impressive. That's where Toprak, when he won his championship, or Ray with all of his championships, it's just grinding out the consistent results, and that's what the top guys do.
And Superpole has often played its part for Axel Bassani, hasn't it?
Yeah, for Axel, it's always been the big weakness, and that's the area where he needs to make that step forward. Qualifying on the 5th row of the grid, regardless of if there was a crash in the session, it puts him on the back foot all the way through the rest of the weekend, and that's the real challenge for riders when you know how tight it is, you know how difficult it is to make the difference in World SBK.
So time ticking down then, 24 riders making their way out onto the circuit. I think we just saw Oliver Koenig making his way out, failed to set a time in Superpole after his earlier crash. But if I'm not wrong there, that's good news for us to have a full complement of riders coming up to the starting line. News then from that Superpole session, a crash for Michael Ruben Rinaldi, restricting him to 9th place. Axel Bassani going down as well, could only manage 14th. But Alvaro Bautista on the front row of the grid here here at Donington Park for the first time at this venue, and handily placed alongside Jonathan Rea to try and strike for the lead right from the start.
Yeah, I think that off the start you want to be able to make sure around a track like this that you can take advantage of the early couple of corners. There are overtaking opportunities at Donington Park, but during the course of the race it gets harder and harder because it's about managing the tyres. So we'll see who's able to push as hard as possible right from the outset, or who's actually going to have a lot of work to do during the course of 23 laps.
Well, we know that Jonathan Rea is not going to be scared of pushing right from the off. He starts from P1. 16 races, the longest he's waited for a first victory in any World SBK campaign. This is his 16th race in 2023, and he's led 17 laps this season so far, but is still winless. Six-time winner at Donington Park. Rea secured Kawasaki's 500th podium here last season. He's bidding for his own 250th this afternoon.
Yeah, and he's looked so good all the way around Donington this weekend. It's a track that suits him. He's had a lot of success here. He also knows this is the big opportunity to win a race this year.
Alvaro Bautista, the dominant championship leader, he's only dropped 12 points in 15 races in 2023. But this should be a bigger challenge for him. The UK round, his lowest scoring in 2022, just 26 points and only one podium, a race one crash and fourth in the Super Pole race. So a genuine trial ahead.
Yeah, I think for Alvaro, he knows that this is a challenge for him. He had a crash last year, podiums, but this has been the toughest track for Ducati, and now it's up to him to show that all the steps, all the progress they've made, it follows through here.
Toprak Razgatlioglu counting down to the end of his Yamaha career after the announcement just before our last round of his move to BMW next season. He's made over 100 starts in blue. He's scored over 1,500 points, and he's the manufacturer's best rider for wins, 31, and podiums, 81. And as such, a fitting tribute in Misano. He was gifted his 2021 title-winning bike.
Yeah, the record man for Yamaha, and he's had so much success. He's turned things around for them in the past when they've had tough weekends. But this weekend at Donington, I think that the Super Pole session doesn't really give a true reflection of things for Toprak. He had some issues during the course of that session where there was crashes in front of him or there were yellow flags out, so he'll definitely think that now he's got a real chance.
First pole position of the season for Jonathan Rea. He was made to work for it and to wait for it. His first since the Portuguese round of last season. But Jonathan Rea always here or thereabouts at Donington Park, even in the seasons when it was Tom Sykes racking up all of those pole positions. Rea was always starting right alongside him from P2.
Yeah, when you look at the record books, it's always Jonathan Rea that's up there, and there's a reason for that. He's got that consistency. Every track he's been able to make the difference in the past, but now he's having to overcome deficits with the bike, and that's where it's impressive to see him put it on pole position. His
teammate Alex Lowes will be the rider who starts from 5th position on the grid, and Dominic Egerter completes the second row. Interesting to see the fans walking around well sheltered compared to last season when we had those scorching temperatures. Not quite as hot, a bit more of a green and pleasant land this time around at Donington Park. P5 then for Alex Lowes, 4 times a podium finisher here at Donington, including 3rd places in each of the last 2 seasons. His last trip to the podium was at the Indonesian round. He's twice finished 4th since then, so he is knocking on the door of another. This would be the perfect place to do it.
Yeah, this is the chance, and I think for the likes of Lowes, you've got your contract sorted. Now's your chance. Your home round, a track he's had a lot of success at in the past. This is where you can really capitalise on that. The Kawasaki, it works better here than it does at other tracks. We've got cooler temperatures as well, so that makes a big difference.
And a real genuine home round for Lowes here as well.
Yeah, he lives 10 minutes down the road, and it's an ideal place for him to be able to come in and spring a surprise.
Dominic Egerter completes the second row. Outstanding he was in Assen and Barcelona, never out of the top 8 at either round. Sunday in Misano, something of a disaster, so he'll be looking to bounce back this weekend. Of course, he recorded a Supersport double here last season.
Yeah, I think for Supersport it's one thing, for Superbike very different story, but Tommy's got the confidence that comes from having success at a track like this. Did a very good job in the Super Pole session to be able to put that bike up there in the second row of the grid right at the end of the session. So for Domi, we know single lap pace, that's always the big strength.
But he does tend to mill around, doesn't he? But we've caught up with him now, Danilo Petrucci, who had an eventful Misano weekend, crash in race 1, a long lap penalty in the Super Pole race, and then another crash with Iker Lecuona, round that really ought to have yielded more than just 9 points. Here he makes his first visit to Donington Park since 2009 in the Stock 600 class.
Yeah, and for Petrucci, he came back and he said the first thing he got off the bike thinking was, this track's cool. This is a track that he's always enjoyed in the past in the stock classes. Now you're back at it, and he's put it on the front row of the grid. This weekend's been tough with the weather conditions. Now it's up to him to make sure he can make that bike last for 23 laps, make the tyre last for 23 laps. The good thing is, if you're on the front row of the grid, you're going to stay close to the front through the course of the race.
That's your front two rows of the grid. We now continue on with row 3. Andrea Locatelli and Tom Sykes. Sykes going here from P8. And the undisputed master of Donington Park scored 9 victories in a row here between 2013 and 17. The most wins he's managed at any other track is just 4. And even in the British Championship in a 2022 that yielded very little, he took his only 2 wins here. This is his best chance to make an impression. And our best chance to hear from him is down on the grid with Anthony Nelson.
Thanks, Alex. Tom, there's a bit unfortunate timing perhaps in Super Bowl, but you did seem to have the pace to go fast here on the BMW this weekend. You certainly got the experience here. How are you feeling for the race?
Yeah, feeling good for the race, and yeah, obviously frustrated. I've still got a little bit of anger about me because I'm getting a bit tired of this yellow flag situation, and you know, I understand completely, but in that little moment of time, looked like everyone was over the correct side of the barriers, etc. You know, maybe could have got away with it, but I got caught out in Misano with a yellow flag, and then got caught out an absolute treat here. So, you know, the lap time, honestly, if it wasn't for that, would have done the last corner how I was intending to, and I think minimum had a front row, which would have been lovely to get the M1000RR on the front row here at Donington. Just go about my racing. I want to really try and get a good set of results here, and then go from there.
Oh, best of luck.
Cheers, thank you.
Yes, Tom Sykes certainly knows that this will be an audition as much as anything, an opportunity to remind everyone of what he's capable. He did a great job, actually, particularly in his last season with BMW. He was able to maintain some of those grid positions rather than tumbling backwards through the order, as had been the case in the past. This is your 2014 Superbike World Champion, Sylvain Guintoli, still very active, of course, in paddocks around the world, and one of, as always, a few celebrity guests here for the UK round. This then is Andrea Locatelli back to the third row of the grid. Locatelli, who suffered his worst weekend of the season so far last time out in Misano, just 17 points actually on the board, and it was anonymous in race 1, just 12th position. It's not going to be easy for him to bounce back here in Donington. He scored just 6 points here in 2021, only 16 last year. Michael Ruben Rinaldi then completes your third row of the grid. Rinaldi will be going from P9, and with 5 podiums in 5 rounds. That is more than he managed in the whole of last season. He's made 3 trips to the rostrum in the last 4 races, and that should have been 4 from 4, really. Had a turn 1 spill trying to fight back at Toprak Razgatlioglu last time out in Misano, so he sits 6th overall.
Yeah, bad mistake last time out in Misano, cost him the chance of a podium. It was also one of those times where he didn't need to blot his copybook. He was able to have a good result, a good weekend, 3 podiums. It would have been a real statement from him, but instead it leaves that question mark.
Yes, no doubt that he's a little bit on trial at the moment. This is Garrett Gerloff lining up from P10, 4th row of the grid, for the highest scoring BMW rider of the last 2 rounds. Hasn't been out of the points in any of those races. He's also the top BMW in the championship standings. 51 points for Gerloff, 3 points better 5 rounds this season than he was after 5 rounds last year with Yamaha.
Yeah, and I think it's one of the interesting things for Gerloff has been to see the progression he's made to get himself back to being aggressive, get himself back to being the rider that we want to see. He's doing a good job in the BMW. He's been the top BMW the last 2 rounds. Yes,
something of a track specialist here at Donington Park as well. His visit in 2021 remains his highest scoring round to date, a 34-point score, and it could have been more but for a race 1 crash from the podium places. This is Philip Ertl alongside him in 11th place here on the grid, and Ertl had a strong start to this weekend, but it's been a difficult recent run for him. Looked much improved on Sunday in Misano. His first top 10 finishes since an impressive season opener at the Australian round, but he scored points in 2/3 of races this season. He's finished all but 1. Home round for Scott Redding. Plenty of eyes on Redding this weekend. He scored just 7 points from the last 2 rounds. Another miserable weekend for him in Misano last time out. Finished 14 seconds behind substitute rider Tom Sykes in race 2. Crucial weekend for BMW and for Redding, who went unbeaten here in the 2019 British Championship. Went well in our last UK round, picking up his first podium with BMW and walking away with 31 points. This season so far, though, it's taken him 5 rounds to score 41. Fifth row of the grid, Iker Lecuona, Axel Bassani and Loris Baz. Anthony Nelson, what have you got for us on the grid?
I'm here with Sylvain Guintoli, 2014 World Superbike champion. Sylvain, you've been here throughout the weekend. What do you think for this one?
Well, it's always a great pleasure to come back to World Superbikes, and we always enjoy catching up with everybody. With the new surface as well, the track is, I mean, it was great before and now it's absolutely awesome. I think we're going to get a great race. I'm looking forward to seeing the action on track and feeling the atmosphere, you know, of World Superbikes. It's always a pleasure to be back.
Any favourites? Because it's been a lot of question marks this weekend with the weather.
Yeah, I think the track conditions look really good. That new surface might bring some surprises with the tyre wear, the tyre degradation, and I'm really hoping that Johnny can pull that one out the bag. It'd be great to see him winning again, and I think it's a good track historically for Kawasaki and for him as well. So yeah, I'm rooting for Johnny today.
Well, enjoy the race.
Thank you.
Well, while we were with Sylvain, we saw Iker Lecuona on the grid. And Lecuona we already introduced at the top of the programme. But he was on 116 points after 5 rounds last season. This year he scored just 64 in the same spell. So he's much in need of a good weekend. Did show some promise in Barcelona. He'll at least want to match the 3 top 10 finishes he recorded at Donington Park last season. Alongside Lecuona on that 5th row, Axel Bassani and Loris Baz. Bassani will feel that he's qualified well out of position after his crash in that Superpole session. 5th in the championship, just 3 points from Jonathan Rea, made up 6 points on him in Misano, but really his fights with Michael Ruben Rinaldi, and he's 27 points down in that one after 4 non-scores this season. Bassani is the only rider to have completed every lap of 2023. That is Loris Baz, who rounds out your 5th row of the grid. Only 4 scoring races for him this season so far. He's the last of 4 permanent BMWs in the championship. Hasn't yet made the top 10 in 2023. He does have a run of 13 consecutive top 10 finishes at Donington and was a double podium finisher here in 2014. Those are your top 15. 15 riders will score points here this afternoon. 23 laps to settle them.